Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. We are back today. After taking the bye week off, it was not in the plans at all. Thank you for bearing with me. I had a whole lot ready to go after the Minnesota game, had a lot of bye week talk, was going to dive deep into the Big Ten and where we were at after 5 weeks, but life threw me one heck of a curveball last week. Still kind of dealing with things right now, but wanted to get something out to you here today. It's not quite as in-depth as maybe my normal episodes are, but I wanted to put something together, hit record, get something out both for you guys and for myself, for a little semblance of normalcy here. But as always, we'll recap the last game, and we will preview the upcoming game. Now, it's been a week. There is certainly still some lingering frustration, though, from Purdue's 20-13 loss to Minnesota, and I can see why people are frustrated. Purdue had a 13-10 lead at halftime. In the second half, the rain came down a little bit harder, and Purdue was unable to score again. Minnesota got a touchdown right out of the locker room to start the second half and kind of sat on a lead, and Purdue never was able to take it back and really didn't have a great chance up until that final drive. It was homecoming. It was very bad weather for homecoming. Not a nice day at all. Purdue brought out the gold uniforms, and I know Ted from Boiler Uniforms, the Twitter account, he likes to listen to the show. I told him on Twitter I didn't like the gold uniforms. In reality, I didn't think they looked great. I know he kind of brought up that they may be a one-off type of thing. I hope so, because the gold uniforms did not look great. Now, getting wet all day probably didn't help them either, but Purdue breaks out special uniforms and the game doesn't go great. Just always feels like that's how things tend to go. In this game, this was the first time this season in 2021 that Aiden O'Connell got the start for Purdue at quarterback, and I would say it helped. I mean, the offense did quite well. I forgot to pull up the live stats here, but O'Connell threw for nearly 400 yards. I've got it pulled up now. 357 through the air. That's a lot. Completing 65% of passes in the rain, that's pretty good. Aiden O'Connell was pretty darn effective for this offense, and the offense moved the ball better than they had in other games. They hit some passes down the field that they haven't been hitting this year. It was a pretty effective offensive game plan for the most part. However, neither quarterback is some transcendent option. I don't think Aiden O'Connell nor Jack Plummer is going to be a quarterback that wins you a ton of games because of his ability. You're not winning games because of these guys. And now, they're not a negative where you're winning games in spite of your poor quarterback play. That's not how things are at all. Both these guys can win you games, but they're not going to be the reason you win games, if that makes sense. And that's kind of where I think some of the frustration of Purdue's fan base is right now, is that you have some serious quarterback talent coming in Brady Allen next season. This past week, Purdue just got a commitment from Ricky Collins, the 2023 four-star recruit, dual-threat quarterback out of Louisiana. It's on the horizon, but it's not there yet. And, some of it's frustrating. In the 2020 class, Sam Jackson decommits from Purdue. In 2019, Paul Paferi comes in as your quarterback recruit. Paul Paferi caught, 3 passes as a tight end in the game against Minnesota. He's not a quarterback anymore. So it's a little bit frustrating. Just to see that, Purdue isn't getting that high-level quarterback play that Jeff Brom wanted, but it's still getting sufficient play to win with, and, that certainly beats the alternative. The real downside, Purdue only scores 13 points in this game. It's not because they couldn't gain yardage. Purdue outgains Minnesota 434 to 290. That right there should win you games. Unfortunately, Purdue gained a lot of yards from their own 20 to the Minnesota 30 or 40. Those yards were seemingly automatic for Purdue in this one, but once it got into Minnesota territory, it just couldn't get things done. It couldn't go over the top because Minnesota is not going to allow you to get easy looks deep. They're going to make you check down and make you find a tight gap in that defense. We saw it on Purdue's one touchdown pass, the fade to Milton Wright in the corner of the north end zone. You found a hole that you could throw the ball to. That's where this was a struggle for Purdue, is that when the field got compressed, they weren't able to find a way to get in the right corners of the zone. They weren't able to hit these tight windows that they had to hit. It's frustrating. I mean, this is a game Purdue could have won. We'll talk about it a little more. But, some more thoughts here. We saw Austin Burton for the first meaningful snaps of his Purdue career. I don't count those UConn reps he got in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter as all that meaningful. Played 3 plays in this, kept it himself on all 3. It's certainly noteworthy just because it's something new. It's something we haven't seen much in the Brom era, a situational one-off play quarterback. But, I don't know. It could be interesting in the red zone. They'll have to throw out of that base at some point. Brom seems to be okay with that, but at some point, if you're going to keep running that out there, you're going to have to throw out of that base. Otherwise, defenses are just going to know that you've got some sort of a zone read option coming. Minnesota in this game just made a few big plays that Purdue didn't. They had a few chunk plays. They had a couple of deep passes. They had that first touchdown on a deep pass. I think it was the first play of the second half for them was a deep ball. That's what made this game. Minnesota made a few big plays that Purdue wasn't able to. And in reality, this is a tough statement to make, but Purdue hasn't forced a significant turnover since the Oregon State game. Now, the defense has been spectacular, and I don't want this to come across as a criticism of Purdue's defense because it has been spectacular so far, and it's been far better than anyone could have asked for. But you have 2 turnovers on the year. Cam Allen, interception, and then, who was it? Caden Smith, maybe, had the interception late against UConn when the game was 49-0. That's it. You would love to get more turnovers, and in this game, it really felt like Purdue was 1 turnover away from really having the chance to get a lead here and run with it, but it just never came. The turnover luck can be a little fickle. In this one, Purdue committed 2 turnovers that bookended the game. First possession, Aiden O'Connell gets strip sacked. The sacks were not great for O'Connell in this game. There were a few sacks that lost a ton of yardage, and it just reminded you a little bit of why that mobility of Jack Plummer was enticing. Now, again, I'm not sitting here saying that Purdue made the wrong decision. I think Aiden O'Connell is the right decision to start. The offense just does more with him in there, but his lack of mobility is noticeable. And then, he threw the interception to end the game. I guess it had to be miscommunication or something because that ball wasn't even close. Frustrating game. The rain, although Jeff Brom has the narrative that he can't win in the rain, which is probably fair right now, That Eastern Michigan game still hasn't gone away. That 2019 Illinois game hasn't gone away. And this one won't go away. But the rain wasn't Purdue's problem in this. Purdue was able to throw the ball just fine. 357 yards. That wasn't a problem. King Doru had a real nice day running the ball, 95 yards on 21 carries. That's real nice. When you look at the rushing attack for Purdue, in terms of true rushes, it was a good day. Now, when you look at the stat book, that is hurt by Aiden O'Connell's 44 yards of sack losses, but it was a good day for Purdue running the ball. It was a good day for the offense. David Bell came back, 6 receptions for 120. Milton Wright, 6 receptions, had that touchdown catch. I mean, it was a good day for Purdue. It just didn't happen when they got inside the red zone or in any type of scoring position where they had to deal with a compressed field and the Minnesota defense could go make plays. It's just, it is what it is. And the frustration from Purdue fans was noticeable after. It's inevitable at this point. People expected Purdue to be a little further along than where they're at right now. I think maybe that's fair, maybe that's not. But through 5 games, where are we at here? Purdue's 3-2. This was the most likely outcome through 5 games. I know 4-1 would have been great, and I know everyone looked at the start of this season and said, boy, a 4-1 start would be unreal. Of course it would have been. I mean, no one expected Purdue to go to South Bend and win. And when you looked at Oregon State, Illinois, and Minnesota, I think it was very reasonable to assume that Purdue would have lost one of those games. Minnesota was certainly the leader in the clubhouse to be the game that Purdue lost out of those, but it was reasonable to think that Purdue was going to lose one of those. No one thought they would lose at UConn. They didn't, and they went 2-1 in the other 3. Yeah, it's not great, but boy, it could be a lot worse. We've seen a lot worse. Heck, all the listeners who were watching Purdue football back in the Darrell Hazel days, boy, they were 3-2, once? Maybe twice. I don't remember if they were 3-2 in 2014 or not. But, I mean, this isn't something that Purdue has done often. And Purdue hasn't started well in the Jeff Brom era. 3-2 is not bad. You're entering the final 7 games now with it being known that success for this team from the start to now and to the rest of the year, success is going to be defined as winning 6 games and getting to a bowl game. If you do that, it's a successful season. And I know that is not the necessary, this isn't what you paid Jeff Brom for, was for 6 win seasons. You paid Jeff Brom to win more than that. But after the last 2 years being frustrating, a schedule this year that isn't as opportunistic as you might hope, and some serious injuries early on, you get to 6-6, you had yourself a fine season. Go to a bowl game, enjoy it, get the Purdue fans traveling. That always helps the spirits. Hopefully it's not like the 2018 Music City Bowl, and you go from there. Can Purdue go 3-4 from here on out? That's the real question. It starts with a tough one. There are some winnable games, though. If I would have been able to do the show last week, we would have talked about this. Wisconsin is winnable. Who would have thought we'd be saying that? But Wisconsin is absolutely winnable. They look terrible. Purdue still will be an underdog in that game. 2 weeks from now, 3:30 game just announced today. 3 o'clock game. 3 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. That was just announced today. I still think Michigan State's winnable. That's another home game. In between those two, Nebraska's gettable. I don't see any reason why Purdue doesn't have a chance there. They're probably not going to win at Ohio State, but Northwestern looks awful. That game at Wrigley Field looks like a game Purdue will be favored in, and a game that Purdue seriously has a shot in when it might have a crowd edge at Wrigley Field too. And then Indiana. Love doesn't win football games, and they are not winning football games right now. They're 2-3. They very well could be 1-4 if it weren't for a late game hold on against Western Kentucky. There are some winnable games left here for Purdue. Now, as it enters the second half, back 7 games of the schedule, it gets some good news. Corey Trice should be coming back for the Iowa game. He's been out since practice the week of Notre Dame. Payne Durham should be coming back. He's been out since the first half of the Illinois game. His absence may be a reason for Purdue's red zone struggles. Think about how many touchdowns Payne Durham has caught over the past few years. He is a red zone monster at scoring touchdowns. He'll be a very welcome target for Aiden O'Connell as he comes back. Now, on the flip side, not everyone's back. Xander Horvath still going to be out. Mershawn Rice, the talented receiver, still probably going to be out for a while. And then the one that Jeff Brom announced in his press conference today is Abdur-Rahman Yassin. He's going to be out for the Iowa game at least. Now, remember, there was some confusion with this. Remember, Brom said that Yassin had only been practicing kind of every other day so far this year. There's something going on there. I don't remember exactly what the injury is, but it's not shocking to see that he's not available in this one. Now, about the game, Purdue at Iowa, a 3:30 kick on ABC with the Hawkeyes coming in as 11.5-point favorites. They are 6-0. Iowa is ranked number 2 in the country. And if you're on Twitter, you've seen it this week. When was the last time Purdue played number 2? That was October 20th, 2018, a 49-20 win over Ohio State. A much different set of circumstances in this one, but it's a decent spot for Purdue. Hear me out here. Iowa just had a very emotional win over Penn State, a game that the argument is being made quite a bit. Iowa probably shouldn't have won. It is certainly a very different game if Sean Clifford is playing quarterback for Penn State in the second half instead of that Robeson kid who was just not ready for that moment in any sense of the term. Iowa's probably not the second best team in the country. Let's face it. They are very good. There's a lot to like about them, but I don't think they're the second best team in the country. So maybe it's a little bit of a sell high spot for Iowa. I don't know. Either way, they've played in some big-time games this year. The Indiana game was big-time hyped. College Game Day was at Iowa State when they went there. Penn State game was big. I mean, they've played in some big-time games. This isn't going to be that for them. Now, they're a different program. They always have been. They're physical as can be. They are not flashy. This year especially, they do not have great quarterback play. Spencer Petras has been serviceable at best. I don't think he's really had to make throws at all yet this year because, Tyler Goodson is an excellent running back. He is incredibly effective. The Iowa defense creates turnovers at an alarming, unprecedented rate. They are creating turnovers like no other. So when the offense had short fields to work with, yeah, absolutely. It's easier for them to score. There's a lot to like about this Iowa team, but if you're Purdue, you come into this with absolutely nothing to lose. And that's a little bit dangerous when you think that Jeff Brom is 3-1 versus Iowa in his time at Purdue. He had those wins in 2017, the late November win to keep bowl hopes alive. 2018, a big-time win early November at Ross-Ade Stadium against a ranked Iowa team. And then last year, the season opener in late October, oddly enough, Brian Brom led Aiden O'Connell and Purdue to a win. And, the common theme in all of these games, even the 2019 loss, is that a Purdue receiver has a big game against Iowa every time. 17, Anthony Mahungu. He had 130-some yards, 2 touchdowns. I remember Terry Wright had a couple of big-time touchdowns against Iowa in 2018, and then David Bell, 13 receptions in both of his 2 games against Iowa, combining for over 300 yards. So this is doable. I mean, it's not often you play number 2 in the country and you're only 11.5-point dogs. You know, Purdue was 14-point dogs at home against Ohio State in 2018. Jeff Brom will attack any weakness he sees in the Iowa defense over and over and over again. That's how these receivers have had big games against Iowa. Is that going to happen again this time? One thing that helps Purdue, Iowa's star defensive back, Riley Moss, he's not listed on the depth chart this week. He may be out. So if David Bell, if Milton Wright are able to get something going, you know, Matt Hankins is still a good DB for them, but if they're able to get something going, you never know. You never know what's possible because Purdue's going to throw the ball. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball much, but Purdue's going to throw the ball. And if it can avoid, we'll get in the keys for a second, but if it can avoid disaster and it can convert in the red zone, anything's possible here. Now, the 3 keys to the game, I certainly have not put in the research for these as I normally do. But, number 1, as I brought up, the Iowa turnover margin is insane. You cannot help Iowa in this game. Aiden O'Connell certainly has thrown some interceptions this year that should not have been thrown. That Illinois game interception in the end zone, that's something that you absolutely cannot afford in this game. If that happens, Purdue's going to lose this game. You cannot help Iowa. You can't fumble. You can't throw picks. Absolute most, Purdue can afford 1 turnover, and that may be too much. In the red zone, Purdue has to score touchdowns. I can't even begin to tell you. You can't beat this Iowa team with field goals because they're happy to kick field goals all day and match you. Purdue's going to have to find a way to get in the end zone. You're going to have to go over the top of this Iowa defense. You're going to have to trust your receivers to make plays. And then finally, it's time to force a turnover, or more, but at least one. Spencer Petras is vulnerable. You're getting Corey Trice back. Your safeties are playmakers. It's time to force a turnover. However it's going to come, maybe George Karlaftis can get to the passer and force a fumble. You never know, but it's time to force a turnover. Flip the script of this game quick. For a prediction, I'm going to go 24-20. I think Iowa's going to emerge from this. Purdue's going to hang around. The 11.5 is too much. Now, maybe I have my black and gold glasses on too much. I don't know. But I really think Purdue can hang in this one late. I just can't get to that upset pick because of the red zone struggles. But Brom plays Ferentz pretty well. Purdue has nothing to lose. Iowa has everything to lose. If you listen to national talk, the big storyline right now is that Iowa realistically kind of has a cakewalk to that 12-0 Big Ten West title. Can they pull it off in Indianapolis? And remember, Purdue's only got 1 conference loss. If they win this game, they control their destiny in the West. Now, I say that half jokingly, only half. I would love for that to happen, but you never know, right? I don't think Purdue's going to win, but I think Purdue has a better shot than anyone wants to give them credit for in this game. Now, that's all I've got for today. As I said, I don't have as much planned out as normal. Still dealing with quite a bit here. Things will be a lot more normal next week, though. We will be back next Tuesday. We will break down the Iowa game, however that goes, and we will preview Purdue coming back to Ross-Ade to face Wisconsin. And folks, we're getting close to basketball. Be on the lookout. I'm going to start getting some things together for our Purdue basketball preview episode. Exciting times here on the show coming up. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a follow on Twitter @BoilersBeyond. Send me some questions. The Q&A will be back for next week's show. Until then, enjoy the game this weekend and send me those questions.